Hello, hello. We've got a really full meeting today, which I'm excited for you all. It's good to see Kevin and Jake back. Jake, I hope you're feeling better. Yeah, good. Let's see. So we're gonna jump in. Everybody remembers our ground rules. I think you guys have been doing a great job. Great job maintaining all of these ground rules that you created. Thanks for coming prepared. Nancy, can I trouble you to advance the next slide? Oh, yeah, that worked well. So speaking of thanks for coming prepared, does anybody want to provide some reflections on the pre-read work in preparation for today's presentation? What you learned that was surprising? What did you learn that aligned with some of the I like, I wish, I wonder? You know, like before there were some, I wonder how we can learn more about land banking and land trusts. So is there anything new? Don't be shy of patience. Joseph, yes. And please, thank you for doing what you just saw Joseph demonstrate. Notice the green light is on. Please, when you are going to speak, please press that center button where you see the profile of somebody's mouth speaking. Hit that for the speaker to turn on. And Joseph, demonstrate. Please share.
I mean, as far as like that article in Westminster, my heart actually goes out to the developers, which I never thought I would say. But you know how quickly local governments can shift when you're dealing with such gigantic projects. I never really thought about it from their perspective before.
Which, Hugo, thank you for sharing that pre-read material. And do you mind sharing what led you to find it to be of value to your fellow task force members? Oh, can you please hit the mic? Yeah.
I think a lot of municipalities are facing the same type of challenges of how to balance. I unfortunately, or fortunately, own 2 large parcels in Westminster, right by their transit-oriented light rail in South Westminster. And we had a city council that basically took all parcels that were not zoned not in the, they were vacant parcels and downzone them regardless of where they were located to low density residential. So we had a 28-acre parcel right across from a light rail station that originally we were allowed to do 18 units an acre, which would allow 500 units over 28 acres, a mix of uses, small houses, big houses, apartments. And they downzone that to 3 to 5 units an acre. So literally all you could do is little like 1/4 acre lots where people could have their nice house and 3-car garage and lawn, walking distance to the light rail. And at the end of the day, maybe it's something that's in between. A portion of the site that could work, but a portion of the site that runs along Federal should be dense. And coming up with the right responsible density that meets the needs of affordability and senior housing, as well as market rate and needed units, is important. And Westminster not only is hard to develop in, but you know, the fees are high, and there's a lot of steps and challenges. And we've been working on a project for 5 years, and we're all the way back to square one, which is, and we've spent ungodly amount of money to date advancing previous entitlement, only to come back to the beginning. The new council, which was voted in November, is now more open to responsible density. And so we're literally trying to rush through a plan that maybe isn't as fully baked as you would want it to be, just to try to get our zoning back to allow the density so it's not this low density development.
Interesting. And then is your recommendation that there be density along Federal because of accessibility to transportation?
The whole site is on one side is surrounded by existing single-family houses. So instead of building an apartment behind, in those people's backyard, you build existing single-family houses. And as you move from east to west on the site towards Federal, you basically incorporate more density.
Well, it'll be interesting to hear more of your intel as you do some breakout set discussions around recommendations applicable to the city of Englewood. So thanks for sharing that pre-read. Anyone else had anything or have anything that they'd like to add to this discussion? Okay, so Nancy, can you help make it do what I need it to do again? There we go. So here's what, thank you. So our agenda for today, real quickly, we'll be sure to go over the strategic vision that I want to say 10 folks who attended last month. There was consensus around this strategic vision. I don't know for those of you who weren't here last month, if you had a chance to see that, but I'm going to show it to you so you can see where there was agreement. So this would prove to be the second revision. So the third iteration of this effort to have this North Star guiding principle that you all are being led by as you make your determination for recommendations. And then we'll get into a breakout reflecting on March. So March, you had a lot coming at you, a lot to process, a lot to digest, and we really get to do any discussion amongst yourselves about what you learned. And so we're going to give you some time today to do that. And I'm not touching this, so I don't know what's happening. Okay. But I will hurry. And so jumping ahead to the strategic vision, this is, for those of you who weren't here, this is where we landed on what can be really your North Star, keeping you really high level focus on how you're going to determine your recommendations as a task force. So the recommendations that you're going to give to the city, this is really your guiding strategic vision. And I'm happy to read it to you, but I know you can read it yourself. So I'm going to give you a moment if you haven't had a chance. And for those who were here and raised their hand in approval of this strategic vision, I see them sitting back, just, yeah, this is good to us. Any questions of your fellow task force members and how and where we arrived at this approval? Does this feel right to you? Okay. So this is what I want you to be thinking about. We'll continue to show it to you. I want you to be thinking about this. This is, as you're having your conversations, this is what you'll go back to. Like, how does it align with these decisions, these conversations we're having? How does this align with what we've agreed to as our strategic vision? Okay. So remember, in our March presentation, we got to hear from our fellow task force member, Corey, of Habitat for Humanity. And we also got to hear from 2 representatives from Post. So it's a very robust conversation. And so what I'd like you to do, and for my sense is everyone has a general recollection of what we discussed, yeah? And for those who weren't here, we'll be sure to group you with some folks who can help refresh what was covered. But essentially it was like a lay of the land in terms of around incentives, the challenges in funding, identifying land, trying to make sure you're creating affordable housing that is indeed affordable, and working with different municipalities to create that delivery. And then Post gave us a nice overview of the different types of programs that they have, to help people get into that housing, but then also the amount of funding that they have allocated to be able to give out to folks who are delivering that affordable housing, okay? So what I want you to do is to take some time to think back on that presentation and what type of considerations do you think that should be included in these guiding principles for the City of Englewood? So think about, again, the strategic vision. And based on what we covered, or what was shared with you in the March presentation, wanting to have some time to reflect in groups of 3 to 4, task members only. Staff is welcome to sit in and listen, but I'd love for you, and I think what we'll do is we'll just group you like groups of 3 to 4, just whoever's nearest you. And I'll give you some chart paper so you can take some notes. But what I want you just to think about, like, what priorities do you want to be thinking about as you want the city to be thinking about what those guiding principles can be? Are you ready to do the debrief from the March presentation? Are you ready to do the debrief? Okay. All right. So if you can just start getting into your groups of 3 or 4 and going to, yes. Anybody have questions? Okay. Do you want to have just, no, you can, Joe, you can be part of it. You can be a part of this. You can just observe, listen. So you guys, yeah, you guys will be a group. And I'm going to give you some chart paper. Samantha, are you comfortable being a scribe for the group? I think you did a great job last time. I got a mark for you. Being a scribe. Are you okay being a scribe? Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Do you like to be a scribe? I think there's more room. about 10 minutes to start transcribing your ideas, your recommendations, what you want to prioritize for the city. Okay, lots of lively conversations I am overhearing about money and policy, equity partners, zoning, lot configurations, and the challenges and what you'd like to do and what cities will let you do. So what we're going to conclude with this breakout, so we're going to spend some time where you get to share your lively conversations with the whole group. And as you get ready to share, I'd love for you to put your chart paper on the wall and then speak to that. And so I'm curious if this, I'm scintillating this vision, Corey. Can you put this on the wall for us? And you and your group speak to lots of dollars in policy. And when you speak to it, please speak to it in the microphone. And, or yeah, that'd be great. So you just have to push the button and make it come. Thank you, Lindsay. Yeah. Or you could just take it up with you to the.
Right. So we talked about how money is necessary to do affordable housing, integral, but then talked about where that could come from. Like, what is Englewood good at, or what can you leverage within Englewood that could create that money? Because maybe an IHO or a linkage fee is a good idea, but would it actually work here? Is there enough volume that would create the amount of funding? And so what is that thing? And then talked about how it's paired with policy, how you need.
It's what?
Paired with policy.
Paired with policy, okay.
Yeah. So not one or the other. The plus.
The plus, yes.
The plus.
Okay.
And we were talking a little bit about, the inclusion or the zoning that happened last year, the single unit to multi-unit, if you could do affordable and, is that feasible, or is there other strategies to create that are more feasible, that can create more housing?
So the possibility of teaming up with Sheridan and Littleton to create like a tri-city fund to help with funding bigger projects, so it doesn't just fall on one municipality. I mean,
Like a regional partnership type of, or tri-city partnership.
Exactly, yeah.
Corey, could you do me a favor? Can you write that down on the tri-city partnership, or however you want to phrase it? Which I think segues nicely to Sherry and your group and what you were talking about in terms of partnerships and equity and zoning. Can you all, can someone bring, and who would like to speak to what your group discussed? You want Sherry to do it? I get it. Here, Sherry, I will take this for you. Your group would like you to grab a microphone. And so this group will gladly share their microphone.
My light on. Okay, so we talked about multiple dedicated streams of funding. That's something we really liked about the host program. That they knew exactly where the money was coming from every year and how much they had to allocate. Developer-friendly zoning, this goes in with what you were saying, but Corey talked about how he almost lost the church property in Aurora over one vote. So we talked about zoning by right. Steps towards equity instead of unstable rent cycle. This was really the land trust model and land banking. And then finding local partners and stakeholders. So there are a lot of different funding sources that the host program uses. And so we thought about getting local Englewood partners involved.
Excellent, excellent. Which I believe, Hugo, this is a wonderful finale segue to your group based on some of the conversations I overheard happening here. And so who gets to, are you going to speak on behalf of your group? Okay, would you want me to take it?
We were skewing a little. I mean, there's so many amazing programs that Habitat and Host offer. And, we thought specifically for new construction or filling that gap, home by home, funds would probably go away pretty quickly and be a challenge. But, rent and utility assistance for home repair and accessibility so people can stay in their homes. Help for rent to keep people from being evicted or foreclosed on, legal and financial assistance. And then really incentives for developers to bring this kind of product online that could incorporate some subdivision of lots, that could bring new smaller lots online that would allow for more of the missing middle type of housing that could be brought and be potentially naturally affordable just as built. But we talked a little bit about how, if I was able to build a 1,200-foot tiny house that's new, I could maybe do that for $200 a foot or 250 grand. And if I could do that on a piece of land that's $100,000, that's little in a corner of a lot, that I could have a full new house that's 1,200 feet and could be 3 bedrooms for total cost of 350 grand that could be naturally affordable. And that instead of maybe bringing that to the market at 500,000 to 600,000 that the market would pay, there could be some incentives for developers to bring that to the market at their cost, more in line with how a Habitat could bridge the gap. But that zoning doesn't exist. Those lots don't exist. So it's impossible to bring it. And the ADU component is really good, but an ADU is a little bit different in that you need another willing party. It's just 2 units, kind of a duplex that somebody would be buying on the back end, not being able to own their own individual unit. So how policy and zoning could potentially bring more people to the table to build naturally affordable homes.
Okay. Thank you for that. Well said. Based on what you heard from the respective groups, is there any other commentary that you have to share based on what was just reported out, like adding on to what we reviewed? Well done. Excellent. All right, so what we're going to do. Yes, please. I didn't see. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm just kind of wondering what kind of incentive would make up that like $200,000 gap? If you're saying that you would build this thing that would have a market value of like $500,000, but there'd be some incentive. I mean, would the city have to write you a $200,000 check? Or?
No, I think that if I was to build that same product, so as a builder, you'd have 2 different incentives, right? Like I'm going to spend $350 and be able to sell it for a gain, right? But just say I'm going to just sell it for my cost, but the city's willing to pay me like a general contractor, right? Just 5 or 10% of the total project cost. So maybe I don't make 200 grand, I make 30 grand or 40 grand to bring that unit online. But it enables me to run a business and, bring more of those units online while being able to not have to, necessarily charge what the market might pay for that individual unit. And maybe would allow me to be willing to, sign a restriction that, that would be a naturally affordable and only grow at the 2%, that would keep that supply at that level growing slowly and allow more of those units to come online.
Yes.
I do have a question for you. You're saying the city would pay the contractor?
No, I think that could be figured out into an ultimate cost structure of a deal that would work for the contractor, would work for to take on or keep a restriction, and it would work for the city. I think that there's some instances where the city doesn't necessarily need to be involved and it doesn't need to be restricted, and there should just be a allowed market rate where sure, I could go sell it for 500 grand, but maybe with what I'm building and bringing online, it's still coming in at a more naturally affordable level because I'm bringing a 1,200-foot unit that is really difficult to build today standalone because the land is just so expensive.
I just would like to point out, Englewood is a little bit different than, let's say, the Westminsters and Thorntons, Auroras. We do not have a whole lot of land. We do not have a whole lot of people. We do not have tons of taxes. And we don't have a ton of money to just kind of give money out.
I don't think the city actually has to spend a nickel in this instance. I think that the person who's coming in and buying a home that costs only 350 grand to build, if the developer is willing to sell it for 350 grand, because in that 350, they baked in their overhead to do the project.
What would be the builder's incentive to?
The
you know,
overhead to do the project. They could write in a 10% profit. So that 350 maybe only costs, whatever, 315, and 35 grand is like a fee that the developer would earn for building that project. Again, paid by the person who pays the 350, not by the city at all. What the city needs is the ability to provide that zoning or optionality for, again, I know we don't have a lot of land in Englewood, but for a portion of those lots that makes sense with alley access in parts of our city, if you were able to create cottage type of zoning and these small micro lots on, 100 properties, you could create 200 new lots that this could happen. And that's not necessarily impacting a ton of the existing housing supply, while providing a lot of opportunity for somebody like myself or other developers to step in and bring new supply online. Because they're able to find land at a lower basis.
We did do a little bit of this with our zoning with the courtyard patterns and the front back split on corner lots. Are you talking about something, because that allowed for some lots
Very,
getting down
same,
to
same thing,
2,000 square feet.
same
So
thing.
we already have that in place. Would you want to, are you suggesting expanding those smaller lot sizes?
Yes.
Okay.
And the corner lots came online with code next.
Yeah,
And when it just came online, right?
yeah.
And it's only for a portion of the corner lots.
For all the corner lots and single and in grain, yeah, but any corner lot could be front back split and it's residential zone
But into two, right?
into two, yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it's even pushing that to get it to 3 or 4 that I think really brings a lot more incentive.
So like 1,000 square foot lots.
I think a 20, like a City of Denver lot that's generally, 50 by 125. So
32,000
25
square foot.
by 62 and a half, so roughly 1,500 feet.
Okay.
So if you were to split it in half and then split it in long ways again.
Yep, okay.
Would it be possible to share with the task force examples of that project that you're talking about?
Well, this will be in our zoning code now.
And,
Perfect,
And-
thank you, Brad.
and I'd love to volunteer more material to the group, specifically on cottage houses.
Yeah.
There's a gentleman who's a DU professor. His name is Jeff Hanlon.
Okay,
His company's called Oried, but he's been working on cottage houses for years, and it's really fascinating. And there's a lot of varieties of what they look like. And if you line them up, how you kind of create these like mid-yard, it's a cool communal living concept that works well for a block and a block and a block. So again, I don't think it should be on every block or on necessarily every corner, but I think responsibly done, it can be done really well
okay.
and allow for a lot of density.
Built up, man, that's too much density. What's your proposal?
Evan, can you speak into the mic and share your response?
Yeah, my response is that's too much density and we're already built out in Englewood. To go that far, and we're gonna destroy the city by doing what you're planning on doing.
I just brought up, let's do it on 100 lots, which create 200 new lots. And again, it's the same parcel, just split into, let's just say 3s, the front and 2 in the back. And I don't think that changes anything. I actually think it makes a great positive impact because it provides an opportunity to build 200 houses that are 1,000 or 1,200 feet that are naturally affordable because they cost less to build, and they can still be a 2 or 3 bedroom home that somebody could come in and rent much easier. If it's just people's directive to do a ADU, I just don't think you're going to see those units built.
Kevin, is there more you want to say?
I'm not saying to do it unilaterally, like every lot in the city should allow this, but I think you could have certain blocks where it can make a lot of sense.
So like integrating it with some discernment about the best location.
Correct.
I do have a comment. Because
Please, can you
I am
speak into the mic?
I am concerned about over densifying Englewood.
Okay,
And that's what my concern is. And by adding that kind of housing, 200 more properties that you're talking about, on top of all the apartments that we're building right now, we're looking at a lot of people coming here.
I think that's wonderful. Lindsay, what's the shortage of units that we have in our city right now? I mean, from the,
Just speaking.
I don't totally remember from the housing study, but it's hundreds. It's not any more than that, right? How many? 2,000
yeah,
for the
we're
housing
two
needs
thousand
assessment.
housing units short for our existing population. So where do those housing units go when there's, otherwise people are gonna tear down an old house and just build a 1,000,005 house. And that's great for one family, but you're replacing one with one. If you could replace one with three and provide the opportunity for three $500,000 houses, let's just say, versus one $1.5 million house, I think that makes sense in parts of the city. And I think that's a reason that we're all here today. It's not to restrict our housing or to stay status quo. I think it's to find responsible ways to bring new density to the area. If you don't want more people here or more housing, I don't know. I think you're maybe in the wrong group.
Well, I think what's really important, is that there's different perspectives and concerns about what happens when you take this approach to adding housing. And so Kevin, what I'm hearing you say, go ahead.
Yeah, I do have another comment here.
Can you
Because
speak into the mic, Kevin?
I'm trying to find solutions to help this group in
Mhm.
affordable housing and find a solution for us here to make things better and affordable for people to move here. But what I've discovered along the way is there's 22,000 something units sitting empty right now. Luxury units, apartments sitting empty
Okay.
that have been overbuilt, which those properties we could have built single-family homes upon. So what do? Do we keep overbuilding? Do we keep overpopulating? How do we handle this? Because $350,000, like you're talking about, everybody doesn't make that kind of money to afford those houses.
So Kevin, I just want to interject where this is being offered up as one of the recommendations, a
Sure.
solution, not the end all be all. And so I think that what's really important, and I hear your perspective, my sense is Hugo hears it too, all of your task force members hear it too. And what we're tasked with is based on that strategic vision, how are we moving to like that North Star of how do we achieve this housing that can help seniors, low-income individuals, home buyers, renters, and future generations. And what Hugo is recommending, what I'm hearing, is a solution, one of many recommendations. And so it's not the only one. And so it's great that I like that you pushed saying, but wait, what about? Because that's what we have to keep doing. But I don't think it's a contentious discussion because we're trying to reach that strategic vision. Okay. And so what I'm going to do, so thank you for engaging in the way that you did. Thank you, Kevin, for pushing, just trying to help us remember that there's concern about too much density, right? And what we're now going to do is pause on that debrief, which was really helpful. But we're going to transition to our next speaker. And so we're going to learn about community land trusts from Tiana, from Elevation Community Land Trust. And so she's put together a presentation to really provide us with an overview of that landscape and more. So I'm going to pass on to you, Tiana, the clicker. And then I believe that, do you want to stay there or do you want to come up? Okay. And then I believe this might. There you go.
Thank you. A little bit tough to follow that discussion, but I hope you'll get some really good information from me, get some inspiration about what Elevation does and how we work across the state. And I look forward to your questions because this is a very lively group and I don't always talk to lively groups. So thank you at 6:30 for helping me to stay awake. Where was the clicker? So like Tasha said, I am Tiana Patterson, the VP of Social Impact and Wealth Equity at Elevation. So in that role, I work with everyone who is applying for our program, all the way up to folks who are already our homeowners, and we're giving post-purchase support. I also oversee our marketing and communications work. So to talk about CLTs, I always like to talk about our origins and where they came from. So the first community land trust was New Communities in Georgia. And it was created in 1969 to support Black farmers. And this CLT was a result of their initiative to be able to access housing, voting rights, and just self-actualization. I was actually able to go see the land of the first land trust, and it was a really amazing experience that I'm really proud to be able to bring that, to be a part of bringing that forward. So when we talk about CLTs, we often talk about balancing the needs of community and the individual. I will go into how the CLT model works, but it's very much a benefit, but a benefit that has a trade-off for our homeowners. But I think an overall benefit for our community, because you get folks who would probably not be able to purchase a home in the neighborhoods where we have homes, being able to live there for generations. And not only that, but someone after them is also able to access that housing who is similarly situated at 80% or less of the area median income. And permanent affordability is created through our land lease. I'm also an attorney, so I'm gonna try not to go into the weeds of our land lease, but it is really the crux of how this works, because we separate the land from the improvements or the home, and it's tied together through a 99-year ground lease. And then finally, often when I talk about CLTs, folks will say, well, I don't want to do that. I don't want to have limited equity or any of that. And that's your right. I'm not here to force you to be a CLT homeowner. I just like to provide options. But one of the things that I was talking with Tasha with earlier while you guys were having your discussion was that when I talk about CLTs, I talk about it being a stepping stone. So between affordable rental and market rate homeownership, there's not a lot of ladders, steps, anything in between for someone to actually be able to become a market rate homeowner. CLT homeownership provides that stepping stone. It's doing so well. I was like, I'm on a roll. Okay. The next piece I often get asked about is how many CLTs are there? So nationwide, there are over 200 CLTs. They really exploded in growth in the last, I'd say, 20 years, but they've been around, like I said, since the late 1960s. We all work in different ways. Many are very neighborhood or street specific, all the way up to Elevation, who is we are a statewide land trust. And how we get there is through different partnerships that I'll go into, but we're not just a partner in building housing. We also do a lot of policy work. We are at the Capitol right now working on lots of things. We also work very closely with local governments on helping to move projects forward. So always the question of the hour is, how does this actually work? So I'll go into how ECLT does a home specifically. So one of the ways that we bring homes into our land trust is through going out and buying a home that's on the market. That's what we call scattered site housing. When we buy it, we own it until we find a qualified buyer. That buyer is approved by our program and is approved for a mortgage. At sale, we split the land from the improvements. So the homeowner is buying a fee simple interest in the home and a leasehold interest in the underlying land. ECLT holds that land in perpetuity through our 99-year lease. We also talk about the uniqueness of being in partnership with our homeowners. We're not like, you bought a home, you'll never hear from us again. We are very much a partner in their entire journey. We want to be supportive of them. We want to help make sure that they are feeling like they have options, which is a new feeling for someone who's maybe a low-income renter for many years. We get a lot of questions of, can I build a fence? Can I paint the walls? And we're like, yes, you are a homeowner. You can do whatever you like, within reason. Don't like put neon numbers on your house, but well, actually, I can't stop you. Go ahead and put neon numbers on your house. But that's the thing is watching people grow and blossom into homeownership is a really unique part of this journey for me and something I'm really proud of. So one of the ways that I say we go out and we buy a home on the market, we are a nonprofit. The way that we're able to do that is we partner with municipalities. So Elevation has our own private subsidy that we were seeded with. And we always partner with municipalities to give that other half. So if we bought a home that was $350,000, Elevation would put in $50,000. We would ask the City of Denver to put in the additional $50,000 to make that home affordable to someone who makes 80% area median income. So the beautiful thing about that is that it's a one-time subsidy. So because of our land lease, because of the limited equity formula, which I will talk about, that home just stays affordable into perpetuity and typically does not need to be reinvested in order to bring the price back down, because that land lease restricts how much equity someone can pull out of the home when they go to sell. And also, I hate feeling like I'm giving lectures, so if you have questions, please. So who is Elevation? I gave the overview, the big spiel about CLTs generally. So Elevation is a relatively new organization. We were started in 2016 by a group of funders who saw a real lack of affordable homeownership options in Colorado. It was Gary Community Investments, the Colorado Health Foundation, the Gates Family Foundation, the Denver Foundation, Mile High United Way, and the Northern Trust. They all came together and initially seeded us with $24 million. And that was meant to get to our original goal that we had when we started. That was meant to give us half of what we needed to get to our original goal, which was 700 homes in our land trust. Their theory was that's about half, we get the other half from our municipal partners, and we're off to the races, right? Now we are at a place where we are looking at having 1,500 homes in our land trust over the next 5 years. And we are actually on a additional $50 million capital raise right now because everything costs a lot more. And all of that 24 million has been used or leveraged is what my CEO would want me to say. We got that initial capital in 2018. That is when the first staff was hired. I was hired in 2019. So I've been with the organization for a long time. We sold our first home in 2019. And as of 2023, we have around 230 homeowners, and we have about 500 homes in our pipeline. And with that, one of the other statistics that I really like is 60% of our homeowners identify as people of color. Our average home price is $261,000. And so our average AMI that we serve is around 76% or lower. In some instances, it's closer to 70 to 65% of the area median income. We also have 20 or 10% of our homeowners identify as single women heads of households, which is double the national average. And that is something we are also really, really proud to have been a part of getting their homeownership journey started. Yeah. That's the top. Yeah. Wait. They're in the pipeline, so they're in development and, yeah. Yeah, yeah. And so what I mentioned before was the resale formula. This is the real key, the land lease and the resale formula is how CLTs do what they do. So when someone goes to purchase the home, say that 250,000 one that I mentioned earlier, say after 5 years, they say, hey, Elevation, I'm done being an Elevation homeowner and I would like to sell my home. We do an appraisal to appraisal increase, analysis of the increase over time. So when we bought that home, we do an appraisal to find out what the market value is and to find out what the leasehold appraised value is, which is the value of the home, subtracting the value of the land, basically. When they go to sell, we do another appraisal, same thing, and say that home was worth $300,000 when they bought it, and now it's worth $400,000 when they're going to sell it. We take 25% of that appreciation. So they can take $25,000 out of the appreciation, and they can sell their home for $275,000. And that's really a baseline because we also add in commissions and fees, and they could have also done what we call qualified capital improvements, which they would get the full value of based on that appraisal that's done when they go to sell. Whatever QCIs they've done, we would find out how much that added to the value of their home, and they would get 100% of that value. So that 275 might turn into 280 if they added a bathroom, for example. And so it's really more of a floor because I've done a few resales now, and our homeowners are getting a lot of appreciation. There's a lot of appreciation in their homes, and they're walking away with, I think, transformative funds. And many CLT homeowners go on to be market rate homeowners. A lot of the homeowners that I've worked with to do resales on are like, oh, I got married, I have babies, I want to move out of this condo, and they bought a single family home on the market, not another one of our homes. So I think it's amazing to be able to create that wealth and to stabilize families to be able to save up enough to buy a market rate home. And I will also say that folks can also stay in their home. They don't have to sell it, and they can will it to their immediate family. So these homes can stay permanently a part of that family and help stabilize them for generations. If they go to sell, because of our limited resale formula, we are able to then keep the price of the home affordable for the next person to buy it. I also get asked a lot, what happens to that $75,000? It stays in the home. We do not take it out. It is not an Elevation's financials. It stays in the home, and that's part of the way it stays affordable for 99 years. So as I said, we typically price to 70% of the area median income. We really do view that 80% as a ceiling, and we really try to aim for lower than that. We found that homeownership obviously has property tax benefits for many, but I do want to mention that our homeowners only pay property taxes on their home, and ECLT pays the property taxes on the land. And their property taxes are based on the affordable price, not on the market rate price. So I do a lot of work with assessor's office across the state, explaining how all this works and how they need to tax us. It's always a fun conversation, but we always do a lot of great work together. And then another part of our pricing structure is our ratios. So homeowners, we require them to, not homeowners, applicants, we require them to have a 33% front-end ratio. So they spend no more than typically 30% or 33% of their income on mortgage, HOA fees, land lease fees, or accounted for in that. I think I failed to mention that folks pay $100 a month land lease fee to us, but it is included in the price of the home. That's how we determine it, is we take all of that and then we price the home. On the back end, we have a 43% cap, and it is lower than a lot of lenders that we work with, and sometimes that can be an interesting conversation. But we really want people to feel stable and not house burden. So that includes things like student loans, car payments, all of that. We really need folks to stay within those ratios. If someone has a credit score of over 700, we would allow their front-end ratio to be 35%. So I've given you the overview of elevation, how we work, all of that. But I know you all were very interested in our projects and how we get things to market. So I mentioned our scattered site is a typical way that we do things. We purchase homes on the market. We also do developer partnerships. So we have a 49-unit permanently affordable condo building in downtown Denver called the Burrell, after Charles Burrell. Sherry, I can't remember the prices of those homes.
205 to 328.
Thank you. And it was we're working with a mission-driven developer who, his parents were teachers, and he's very dedicated to bringing affordable homeownership to folks that remind him of his family. We also do a lot of work with the City of Denver has been a good partner with this, the state of Colorado. It really takes a village. I say developer partnership, but it's just, the developer partnership part is that they agree to build it and we agree to buy them all when they're fully constructed. And then we sell them, to our program participants. But it is a lot of work to get us there, but it's always been worth it. We have another condo development by that same developer in Santa Fe Arts District. It's called Latella, and it is 92 units of permanently affordable homes or condos, and it was $149 for a studio, $179 for a 2-bedroom, and $199 for a 3-bedroom. So we really got a lot of students, graduate students, teachers in there, artists, and that's exactly what we were hoping for, because we want our developments to reflect the communities that we're in. And so Latella means like the fabric, and that was to honor both the Hispanic history of Santa Fe and the artistry in that neighborhood. And it's been really cool to see folks be like, I never thought I would be a homeowner, certainly not at 149.9, and they are, and it's amazing, right? We also do a lot of community partnerships, and with that, we work with realtor teams, community groups, and others to just bring awareness of elevation. We only go where we are invited. I sometimes call us vampires. So we only go where we are invited, and that is because we first need that municipal buy-in, but also because we want folks to be excited that we're there. There's no use in building housing that people aren't interested in. So we really rely on our community partners to help bring us forward. And then we also work with particular mortgage lenders. So we have about 15 participating lenders with elevation. You have to understand our model and you have to buy into it. So you can't work with anybody. You have to work with those participating lenders who understand our program. But it was really important to me when I got into this role that I gave folks a similar homeownership experience as what you would have on the market. So originally we had like maybe 8 lenders for folks to choose from. It was really important to me to expand that so that folks felt like they could shop around and be, competitive with, well, First Bank said they would give me this, and Huntington said this, and I really wanted them to have that experience. Yeah.
Are you able to partner at all with Chaffa for some of their first-time homebuyer incentives and some of their lending programs?
Yeah, we do work with Chaffa, and they're actually one of our biggest ECLT lending partners. So they've helped us be able to bring developments to fruition through their investment in our work. So both on the mortgage lending side and on the development side, Chaffa's been a great partner. Thank you. Yeah.
You'd mentioned that a city would put $50,000 into the structure, and was it the state was the second partner?
Elevation.
Elevation. So is that a set 50 or is it dependent upon the structure?
Yeah, I mean, it actually really depends. I would say Denver usually gives more than that because their recognition of how much things cost in Denver. And sometimes it's not money, it's land, it's expedited permitting, it's waiving tap fees, it's things like that that add up to that match, that subsidy match is what we call it. So it doesn't have to be the 50 in cash, but it does need to be something that helps make the project affordable.
So over the lifespan of the piece of property, does the city ever recoup any of those funds that they put into it, or is it just there?
No, we all just dump money in there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will say the homeowners are taxpayers though, so the city is being some of that, I guess.
In regards to that question, like say the project on Santa Fe, would you feel comfortable telling us what the city was able to provide for that project?
Yeah, it's been a while. I can't really remember, but oh, I want to say about 3 million. But that was in a different rate environment, that was when you could still get like loans at 1.5%. So on the Burrell, it's like more like 8 to 10. And so specifically when Tasha was asking me about land banking and how it all came to fruition, I really wanted to give a case study in a really successful project that we did in Fort Collins. And it's called the Bird Whistle. And what it is we partnered with the city of Fort Collins, and they provided the developer land from their land bank. And just so I want to be accurate with this, the land bank program acquires sites currently lacking infrastructure, which lowers the price, and then waits until development occurs around it. And as surrounding projects construct the utilities and the streets, the land bank property becomes easier to develop. And this program ensures a good distribution of land will be available in the future to increase the stock of affordable homeownership. So that is the mission of the Fort Collins Land Bank program that is held by the city. So just like it said, there was this great piece of land that they had sitting for a long time. TWG is a developer out of Indianapolis who typically builds affordable rentals. They wanted to do their first homeownership project in Colorado. And the city of Fort Collins had already identified Elevation as a partner that they wanted to work with. So when TWG came into the mix, the city sold that land to TWG for $25,000. And it was worth $3 million. And in doing that, and this is a picture of one of the homes, this is the actual picture of the Bird Whistle Townhome. And in doing so, we were able to, Elevation was able to then come in, provide our subsidy. The city provided theirs with that donation, and then TWG, the developer, also reduced their developer fee as a way to help make this project affordable. So there are 54 townhomes in this development. They are 2 and 3 bedrooms. The 2 bedrooms are $255,000. The 3 bedrooms are $290,000. It is in a high opportunity neighborhood. It is near parks and schools, and the homes surrounding this development are $800,000 plus. So folks are able to move into a neighborhood that they would have never been able to access, but for this program and the partners that came together to make it possible. So, oh, that went a little wonky, but just back to your question that you had asked about what cities give. These are some of the cities that we work with. And as you can see, some we do MOUs just as like we guarantee that this is a partnership that we will have for many years. But some have done cash, some have done land donation, and some have done fee waivers / others, which is the waiving of those tap fees that I mentioned, or expedited permitting, or other, I'm trying to, my mind went blank, but there have been a lot of different ways that you can provide that subsidy match that we require, and it has been instrumental in getting homes into all of these areas. Elevation is in all of these areas and more. We have homes coming online in Trinidad, in Gunnison County, and we have 3 homes out in Delta. We've done a lot of metro area work, and so now we're really focusing on more rural areas as well to make sure that our land trust really is statewide and serves people across the state. And that's
Thank you. Any final questions for Tiana? Yes, Chelsea. Can you speak into the?
I think I would know better right now. I'm sorry if I missed this, but do you require a certain number of units to be available in a municipality to partner with them? Do you have a minimum threshold?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Joseph?
I saw that some municipalities will donate land. Does Elevation, would they work with a municipality if they were, if the city had like a 99-year, like they retained the land, but they gave a 99-year lease basically?
Yeah, we've had some discussions with that in some mountain communities who do have like long-term leases on their land. It hasn't worked so far, just because it's difficult to figure out how to layer the land lease on top of other covenant restrictions. But I think we figured it out. I recently drafted a deed restriction, a 99-year deed restriction that I think can be layered on top of any other covenants that may be existing on the land. Yeah.
Steve?
The 99-year lease you're talking about, that's for the person who has the physical structure.
Yeah.
They're doing it for 99 years, but at the end of that 99, I'm assuming the
renews.
families can renew, but it stays within the land, your foundation.
Yeah, so it automatically renews after 99 years. If it were to actually run that long. It also, you get a new land lease put on your home every time you sell it, which restarts the 99-year clock.
I have a question. Does the layering of covenants that you're talking about impact the homeowner buying? Does that create any challenges for lending? Have you seen, I know it's new, but.
Yeah, not so much, it's more of an administrative burden on elevation to keep track of all the compliance. There may be some additional documents the homeowner has to sign at their closing, but it's us that it's usually elevation will guarantee that this home remain affordable for 99 years and that it won't be sold to someone who makes more than 80% of the area median income, stuff like that.
On the map that you showed, and I'm sure you said this, it has had 10 in Colorado, 4 in Texas, et cetera, but you have hundreds of units. Remind me what those numbers on the map was per state?
Yeah, so that was the number of community land trusts that states have.
Organizations like your own?
Yes.
Got it, thank
organizations
you.
that-
Is there a status quo or like a protocol that land trusts follow, or is it kind of free for all? Everybody makes their own rules? What is?
It's not a free-for-all. There are certain regulations that come with it. In order to be a land trust, we have to be certified by Fannie and Freddie. And with that is that 80% restriction, it is that 99-year land lease, and it is that limited resale formula. All of those, you have to do those things in order to be a community land trust. Yeah.
So if in Englewood, we wanted to have a partnership with Elevation, that would start with an MOU, and then how would you guys go about finding and buying homes in the area?
Yeah, so if it was a scattered site project, our VP of real estate would start looking and seeing what's out there. If there were things that what we call broke our subsidy, we would have to go to the city and ask for additional funding in order to purchase homes to make them affordable. And it doesn't always have to start with an MOU. Sometimes it's a conversation. Sometimes it's the city coming to us saying, I have this parcel, I'd like to build 4 townhomes on it. Can they be community land trust homes? Yeah.
I'm assuming the 80% limit of AMI would stay, would be existing over the duration of the person's ownership of the home. Do you run into issues where their income increases and then what happens?
Yeah,
That's a
good
great
question. Once you're in our homes, we don't care what income you make. I want you to get a raise. I want you to move out of the CLT home because you're too successful and you don't need it anymore. And it's a great question that we get, and I always see applicants' faces light up. We don't check it after you're in the home.
So I'll ask the flip of that. What happens if you are in one of these homes and you lose your job or face some sort of hardship? Does Elevation have assistance programs, refinancing, et cetera?
Yeah, great question. So because of that unique partnership that we have, homeowners in CLT homes, like during the 2018 foreclosure crisis, they have built-in equity. So no one was underwater because they had bought a home for less than what it was worth. We also do, because of those mortgage partnerships too, I know all of our lenders, they give me a warning if someone is experiencing trouble. That $100 a month land lease fee helps to sustain Elevation, but it also is a great canary in the coal mine, if you will, because someone will stop paying that first if they're experiencing trouble. And that triggers my team to reach out to them and find out if there's ways that we can help them.
We have time for one more question. Could be anything. Tiana, you were wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you. This is where we get to have a moment to discuss some more. And so you're going to stay in your same groups. One of the things that really resonated with me that Tiana said, again, kind of segueing from our earlier conversation, is how you're looking at creating housing options and you're really responding to the needs of the community in sequence with needs of individuals. And so I love what you shared with us today, and I just really appreciate the overview. So you're going to stay in your groups that you were in before. And what I want you to think through are these two questions, like how would you answer these two breakout discussion questions? Like what solutions would you recommend? You will have a scribe again. And I'm just going to give you about 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes just to go through that conversation, really just debriefing of what you just heard Tiana share. You ready? I'll be coming around with a note, but you can get talking about these questions. Go. to. They have to. To start noting for the report out what your groups discussed. And it's helpful for the note capture. So you have about 2 minutes to start noting your conversations. Whoever the scribes are. Pressure, pressure. your consensus of your discussion? I just need it noted. What you're going to share, if you have any, even if it's just one idea. Do you have a consensus of what you discussed at level? Back to that again. We're back to money and policy. Lovely. All right, we're going to just do some share out for a few minutes, and then we'll conclude with I like, I wish, I wonder. Okay, we're going to start with Sophia, Hugo, and Kevin's group. Given their copious note-taking, sprinkle some inspiration to your fellow team members. Okay, so would you like me to take that and put it up while who would like to speak? Are you going to speak to it, Sophia? Okay. Do you need me to hold it so you can see it, or do you? Close, like over there? Yeah, I'll hold it. Yeah. I won't go far. No, don't you apologize. All right, so Sophia has the floor. She's going to talk us through.
All right, so we talked, of course, about incentives for developers to explore land opportunities, taken in context with the conversation that we had from Tiana, which is great.
Getting the mic closer.
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
And we were discussing what might, we touched on what might incentivize developers to work with a land trust, especially in like one-off projects. And we kind of kept coming back to what would incentivize developers the most, which would be removal of those requirements and fees, parking, utility fees, things like that. And we also kept returning to the idea of, I felt like at least, removing those barriers for developers being tied to some sort of affordability requirement or, paying a fee in, which is also funding Denver's host program. That seems to be something that is working in neighbor cities. And then, of course, the implications of this discussion in general seem to kind of lead towards more density. And we were having more discussion about what that would look like to do responsibly and not to radically change what density exists.
Right.
And there's an opportunity to do that while, increasing density.
So balance. Anything more to add from the group? Okay. Joseph, would you like to go next? Okay. Oh, well, we'll take more questions.
We're just curious what the land situation is in Englewood. If there were to be projects that were discussed, like the ones discussed, what kind of, I know we have some industrial land that might be underutilized. What is available? And then also, how would we get it? Like, and it keeps coming back to money. Even if there was quote unquote affordable land to do a project on, where does that money come from to even offer that to an organization that might be able to build, 80 units or what? So we just got more curious.
No, I love it. No, that's good. Really great questions that we need to find ways to answer in the subsequent meetings. Yeah, thank you. And Samantha, or Sherry, or Steve. Steve's standing. Would you like me to put this on the wall or hold it close? Memory. Okay. Extemporaneous.
Thank you for reminding me. The conversation this evening about land trusts potentially could work in Englewood. We do have property that will get redeveloped that the city owns eventually. Who knows exactly when that will happen. There could be a donation of a certain amount of land. Condominiums is kind of probably the most idealistic because you can have that higher density, bring the cost down, make it more affordable for those folks who are on the edges or the marginal financial stance. And I get it. Now, this is me personally speaking here. I got to say, I like that comment that the land lease is kind of an indicator how well that individual is doing that's in that property. So some of the social works that usually would go to governmental staff is now being partially handled through a private entity, reducing probably the cost to the taxpayers. The only caveat to the whole scenario is if that land were to ever leave that trust, the land was liquidated, and whatever the city, or if the city put in $100,000 or whatever, the equivalent would have to be reimbursed out of the sale of that property, so that everybody's made whole. It did that social good over that X amount of time period. It could be 50 years, could be 100 years, could be 200 years. But if it's ever taken out, then everybody's made whole again.
And when you say everybody, you mean inclusive of the city, everyone who put money into.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments based on what was shared out? Yes, Sherry.
We also talked about the possibility of a transfer tax to fund this or to provide a revenue stream similar to what Host is doing. But since Englewood has so many non-owner occupied properties, if there were a way to add a transfer tax onto a property that was not being sold to an owner occupied.
So like investor
Yes,
properties?
exactly. So if it's being sold to somebody who's not going to live in the property, is there a way to tax that property differently potentially so that that could help fund this revenue stream, because it's a big thing in Englewood where people own second homes here.
Interesting. Okay. Thank you for that addition. Anything else? All right, this is where we wrap it up with the I like, I wish, I wonder. So if you could just take a moment to grab one Post-it note each. Remember, the green is I like what we learned today. What was that? I wish we would have learned more about X, Y, Z. And I wonder how the task force could be like most valuable in supporting what, based on what you learned. Or I wonder if we could go tour a site, optional of course. I wonder if we could tour a site on a Saturday or a Wednesday before the Thursday session. Planting seeds. There will be more about that later. But just, I wish, I wonder. So as you write this, once you write it, please just put it up on the Post-it, the corresponding Post-it, and then you are free to go. Thank you so much for your time today and for the really robust conversation too. This was a great session hearing everybody's thoughts. So the I like is the green, I wish is the orange, and the I wonder is blue. Just making it fun and colorful. Brad, would you mind speaking into the mic about who's coming in May? High level?
Yeah, I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, the May meeting is going to be talking about our new development code that was put in place last fall. And our planning manager, Brian Isom, who was the manager of that process, that was known, kind of branded in the community as Code Next. You may have heard that term. He's going to come in and spend the specific amount of time with you all around our housing policies and some of the issues that we've tried to address in some of these development types, and also what we've done, at least to get a start in terms of incentivizing affordable housing through density bonuses, height bonuses, parking reductions, that type of thing. So he'll come in and share that with you next month.
Excellent. Thank you, Brad. It'll be a great meeting. We are going to entertain Hugo's idea of maybe checking out that location. So we'll touch base with you, Hugo, and make it an optional tour. This concludes our meeting. I will see you on May 2nd, if not sooner, for an optional tour.